Welcome to Alabama Justice Lawyering Up. My name is Richard Jaffe, the senior partner in the Birmingham, Alabama law firm of Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight. We are going to explore with you the hottest cases, the most controversial topics of Alabama justice, and we're going to bring to you exciting key players that make our Alabama justice work or not work. We look forward to having you. Welcome to another show of Alabama Justice. I'm Richard Jaffe, and to my right is Brett Knight from the law firm of Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight. And today we have a wonderful guest, the current presiding judge of Jefferson County, Judge Clyde Jones. Judge, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're excited you're here. So let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to become a lawyer and then a judge.
Well, and again, it's a pleasure to be here with such fine lawyers. Always am happy when I see you guys entering the courtroom because I know that you're going to be prepared.
Well, thank you.
And judges appreciate that. When I was a little kid growing up in Smithfield, right down from Legion Field, we only had one television, and my grandmother, who we called Medea affectionately, loved Perry Mason. And she would sit on the sofa watching Perry Mason on our little TV, and I would sit on the floor right by her legs, and I would watch it also. And so over a period of time, I began to really like the Perry Mason show. And I just thought it was such a wonderful profession to be a person that helped innocent people not go to jail or prison. And the more I watched it, the more I became fascinated with Attorney Perry Mason. And just one day out of the blue, a light bulb went off, and I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to be a Perry Mason. I'm going to be a criminal defense lawyer. And that's really all I ever wanted to be growing up. I didn't go through a phase of wanting to be a firefighter or a police chief or whatever. I always said I was going to be a criminal defense attorney, like Perry Mason. And so I was single-minded in accomplishing that. And as I grew older, I realized that probably some of the most complex criminal cases would involve mental illness or mental disease related to the field of psychology. So I decided to major in psychology so I would be well equipped to understand the terminology and terms and all the ins and outs of people that suffered from mental illnesses. And it really was a great help. And of course, later on, I attended law school at Cumberland and really had some good professors in criminal law, criminal procedure, evidence, those sorts of things that are directly related to being a criminal defense attorney, as you know. And it just really worked out well.
You said that you always wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer.
Correct.
More or less your dream.
Yes.
Did you start off your career, once you passed the bar, as a criminal defense lawyer?
No, I learned that the best criminal defense attorneys were first prosecutors. So I wanted to start my career in the DA's office, the district attorney's office, before I began defending people. So in law school, I was fortunate enough to be hired by the DA at that time, who was Earl Morgan. And I had the opportunity in my senior year to practice under the Senior Student Practice Act. And that act allowed third-year law students to be able to handle cases in court under the supervision of one of the deputy district attorneys. So I was trying cases my senior year in law school. And I was sitting in murder trials with people like Ken Gomany and other deputy district attorneys. And it was just invaluable experience while still in law school. And so when I passed the bar after law school, I went right back into the district attorney's office. And the good thing about it was that I got to start off in circuit court as opposed to starting out in family court, going through district court, and then eventually reaching circuit court.
Let me ask you this. What was the greatest difference when you became a lawyer between the Perry Mason show and real life?
The greatest difference? Realizing that unlike Perry Mason, that, that was really, TV entertainment, and realizing that there were a lot of guilty people out there, and that they were entitled to the best possible defense that was available. And unlike Perry Mason, where everybody was innocent, basically, in real life, you realize that quickly that wasn't so. And then once I practiced criminal law for a while, and I did so for a total of 22 years, 5 as a prosecutor and 17 as a defense attorney, you quickly come to the realization that unless you have a good judge on the bench, everything else really doesn't matter. So once I realized that, hey, you got to have a good, fair judge on the bench, I started thinking about the possibility of one day moving toward that position.
Now, Judge, before we discuss your time as a judge and the presiding judge of Jefferson County, let's discuss a little bit about your time as a defense attorney. What did you learn from being a district attorney that made you well equipped to practice criminal law as a defense, in the defense sphere?
Well, for example, when I started out in the DA's office in Jefferson County, it was really trial by fire. They would hand you a file, say, go to Judge Jasper's courtroom and try this case. And it was really trial by fire. And then when I moved on and I went to Macon County to be the chief prosecutor there for 4 years, I had to do everything. Had to run the grand jury, handle the preliminary hearings, and handle the trials. And while I was handling the grand jury, I had to put together all of the indictments, which are the charging complaints, okay? And that process helped me to memorize pretty much all of the section numbers in the criminal code. When I became a defense lawyer, I could simply look at a complaint or indictment very quickly and know if it was done correctly because I had done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them myself. So that's just one example of how, working in the DA's office helped me a lot when I was a defense attorney. And I can remember one of the most famous cases that I had as a defense attorney, and there were several problems with the complaints that were drawn up in that case. And so my philosophy as a defense attorney was to be able to try to win the case technically and factually. It's kind of like having a plan A and a plan B. So I always looked at cases from the standpoint of technically, is everything correct and done properly? And then substantively looking at the possible defenses that one might have.
Before we take a break, tell us what the most satisfying part of your job as a judge is, and also the most frustrating.
Well, the most satisfying part of my job, which is multifaceted, is when, for example, I'm sitting in the courtroom and I'm working on my computer, and someone would just walk in the door and they'll ask my bailiff, is it okay if I speak with Judge Jones for a second? And I'll say, sure, Neil, let him come on up. And they'll come up and they'll say something like this. Judge Jones, you probably don't remember me because I know you see a lot of people, but I want you to know that you sent me to prison 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And you know what? you saved my life. Because the road that I was headed on would only lead to death. But you gave me the time to really think about the direction and the path that I was headed in. And because I had that time away from the community, I realized that I needed to turn my life in a different direction, and I did. And now I'm working, I have a family, I'm taking care of my kids, and I have a good life. And it happens all the time.
Impacting.
The other side of that is this.
Let's do this. Okay. Let's go to a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you what the most frustrating part of being a judge is.
Sure.
In the criminal courts.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I'm Richard Jaffe, senior partner in the law firm of Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight. And with me is Mike Hanle, who has handled many, many, many federal cases, among other cases. Mike, what would you do if you received a call, like you do often, from someone who believes they're a subject or a target of a federal criminal investigation?
Well, the most important thing to do is to immediately reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office to find out who is the principal U.S. attorney that's handling that case, and you can begin to have a dialogue with that person.
And why is it important to do that?
Well, it allows us to participate in the shaping of the case, how that case will ultimately maybe be charged or not charged at all.
And what are federal sentencing guidelines?
Well, the federal sentencing guidelines are a complex series of calculations that begin with an offense level for each criminal charge, and it includes the calculation of your criminal history, which is your prior criminal conduct.
We at Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight are ready, willing, and able to talk with you or anyone in your family at any time if you find yourself in a position where you need someone experienced in the federal courts. Welcome back. And we are talking to the Honorable Presiding Judge Clyde Jones of Jefferson County. Judge, let's talk now about what is the most frustrating part of your job as a judge in the criminal courts.
Probably one of the most frustrating aspects is trying to have the right personnel and having them properly trained so that, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together, they all work cohesively and respectfully of each other. And we've had a lot of success with that. We've had a very good team over the years. And in a circuit judge's office here in Jefferson County, there are basically only 4 employees. You have the judge, you have the court reporter, you have the judicial assistant, and the bailiff. So it's very important that those people are at work and that they are there when they're supposed to be, and that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And you have to depend on other people to do what they're supposed to do.
So basically a team.
It's a team. It's all about teamwork. And one thing that I try to do in my office is that I try to make sure that people are cross-trained. In other words, I try to have the court reporter knowledgeable about what the judicial system does. The judicial system has to know what the bailiff does. The bailiff has to know what the judicial system does.
Do we achieve justice in our courts? And what is your view? Some say, why don't we just get rid of jury trials? So what's your view on those issues?
Well, I can say this. I talk to my juries after every trial because I want them to know that I appreciate their willingness to serve as jurors. As we all know, a lot of people, they try to get out of jury service when they get the little card in the mail. So I talk to them and I try to find out what their concerns are and what their comments are about how the trial was handled and those sorts of things. And they always have very good comments. I also allow most of my juries to ask questions during the course of the trial.
And you made the media on that. They did a big story on that when you started that, as I recall.
They did. And this is the reason why, and I know I'm answering your question in a roundabout way, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
The point is this. When I was a prosecutor and a defense attorney, it occurred to me that everybody that participates in the jury trial gets to ask questions except the one body of people that has to make the decision. And it appeared to me that if anyone should be asking questions, it should be the jury. I did not want my jury to go back in the jury room and have an unanswered question that could have easily been answered in the court during the course of the trial. Mm-hmm. So about 2007, I did the research first. And made sure that it was okay. And now I let the individual jurors ask one question if they have a burning question in their mind as a result of the questioning by the state's attorney and the defense attorney. I let them ask it out in open court so that when they do go back to deliberate, they won't have that question in their mind. And the jurors all tell me that it's very helpful in them trying to reach a fair verdict and the correct verdict, because jurors really want to do the right thing. They don't want to convict innocent people, and they don't want to let guilty people go.
And they're officers of the court, just like lawyers.
Well, they are, and they swear an oath to well and truly try the issues presented between the state and the defense and to render a true verdict based upon the law and the evidence. They take that oath.
Now, Judge, have you ever seen a juror ask the damning question of, basically is the main crux of the case that basically, why has the prosecutor, why has the defense attorney not asked that? Have you just basically looked, that's a great question. Could you provide any examples?
Well, we get great questions all the time by the jury. We just finished a trial. Guy was, maybe I shouldn't comment on it because it had